as they're leaving, I'm like, if you don't come back, we're dead. The primary reason I wanted to join Special Tactics was I always knew I wanted to do something a little bit more, I guess, forward of everything. And I do like a challenge a lot. And that was kind of the start of the journey. So this was actually my first deployment. I was to attach to a Green Beret team as a Joint Terminal Attack Controller, or JTAC, and essentially run around with them. And then when their ground force commander required ordnance be dropped from the sky or from, you know, a HIMARS crew or artillery, that would be my job, to like coordinate fires. We had like a couple short days out at a camp where we all kind of met together before we took off. I actually ended up bunking with Mark De Alencar. Super humble guy, extremely competent and extremely professional. The same way that they expect competency from me, I expect that from the team, because I'm not just like looking down an alleyway for you know, a bad guy that might pop out. I'm expecting that, like, if I went right, the guy behind me went left. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of expectations and job competency both ways. So I was just fully expecting this team to know what they're doing. And to this day, honestly, it's by far the best team I've ever worked with. Essentially, we were tasked with an operation to go clear some valleys in Nangarhar, Afghanistan. So we loaded up in all our vehicles and we left. As soon as we started our movement, it would be getting into ticks, like our troops in contact, like over and over and over again. So every day while we maneuvered, it was like gunfights and ordnance dropping all day, every day. Near the end of the valley, like as the enemy was getting pushed further or closer and closer to Pakistan, like it became more violent. I don't know how long I had been up. It had been days, like since we've slept. I might have caught like a cat nap here and there. And I remember walking into a compound. We had finished clearing it with our partner force and a couple Green Berets. And I remember sitting down, and the next thing I know is I'm waking up to like belt-fed machine gun fire, like right outside the compound. And I was like, and I look around and I notice I'm the only American sitting down right now, and I don't know where my friends are at. And I just see like two of my partner force like pulling security out of the compound, and I'm like, my friends are getting shot at. And that was like the trigger. So I slap my helmet on, grab my rifle, go sprinting out of this compound. And as I'm rounding the corner, I see my team. They're all like stuck behind it as they were trying to maneuver along the side of a mountain. They got caught by like a pretty large, overwhelming enemy force. So I see that and I'm like, I need to go help them. So at this point, I start sprinting towards them, and there's just like machine gun raking fire all around me, and go diving behind this rock. Somehow made it. To our south, maybe 100 meters-ish, was a huge tree line, and there was like a pretty huge enemy force there. And the only way we were really gonna ever leave that rock was by dropping tons of ordnance basically in the open. And that's really where like dropping bombs gets scary, is where you don't have cover to anything. Started dropping bombs into this tree line to provide us enough suppression to where we could get up and move. But it would work for like a couple seconds, and the run that we would have had to make was about another like 80 meters away to get behind like some decent actual cover. Started dropping bombs. We started with like some 500-pound bombs. That wasn't working, so we started dropping 2,000-pound bombs. That worked for a little bit. And then I was like, okay, well, we have to move. As soon as the aircraft call, the weapons away, 20 seconds, I just scream at my team to start running. Dive for cover, and as the last guy like tucks behind the wall, this bomb just airbursts, and you just see all the frag like just wipe everything where we were just at. So that kind of like started the roll of bad events into worse. We had like our two opposing elements on the valley. So as the opposite side began to move, they began to receive fire from our side of the valley. So, and this is where experience again and competency kind of cued us into where there was like a sniper dug in very close to where we were at, and we're like, okay, let's go find this guy because he's engaging our friendly force. Our team sergeant at the time, he just hears like outgoing rounds from a guy in a bunker on the side of a mountain in a valley, so sound is extremely disorienting already. It's not just like a bang, yep, that's right there. You just hear like a whoosh, like random snaps and clicks and booms and grenades going off and machine gun fire. And he's like cued in on one specific sound, and he's like, he's right there. And he points to the top of this like rocky outcrop, and there's just like a small slit in the top of it. Myself, D, and the 3 remaining Americans formulate a quick plan of how we're gonna like approach this problem set. D and I low crawl up, cave entrance gets fragged, I pop up over the top to make sure no one's running out, and the rest of the team like maneuvered in. And as D was the first guy, I see him pop the corner and just start engaging. So I'm like, okay, well, there's bad guys in there. So as D's like approaching, I just hear PKM has like it's a belt-fed machine gun that the enemy used basically. And I just start hearing it like just rip. And D just collapses like a sack of rocks. And I'm like, oh boy. When you're in the open and you're getting shot at, it's a lot different than even having an industrial size rock to hide behind. Everyone is basically proned out in the open and just fighting for your life at this point. The AC-130 was running low on fuel, and they're like, hey, we need to go refuel. And as they're leaving, I'm like, if you don't come back, we're dead. So the pilot was like, we're coming back. So here comes the pilot, and we had ran out of ammo at this point, like, and there's dudes still like all over the green zone, all over the tree line. And yeah, I'm like, well, if you don't start shooting, we're gonna die. The AC-130 just starts thumping rounds, just doing the Lord's work. What I have for cover was like a tiny sliver of rock. As I'm pinned, I can just see rounds like snapping past my kit, like just crushing this little rocky outcropping that I'm in. I'm like, this is bad. As this AC-130 is just dropping ordnance within like 25, 30 meters of us, I'm like, we gotta get D out of here. Our helicopters were out of ordnance as well. They had to leave. They were trying to go get rearmed so they could come back to support us. The AC-130, with how confident the pilot was tracking, like he's gonna be dropping no comms around us. So as he's like completing his engagement, I sprint down to D. There's still like rounds cracking everywhere, and every single guy on that hill at this point didn't care. We're like, we're getting D off this hillside. Basically, we began our movement to the medevac HLZ, and all the while just keep dropping bombs. Just keep doing what you do. Everyone just knew exactly what to do. There's formats, everyone was following them. Me being the weird Air Force guy attached to the Green Beret team, if I'd have gotten schwacked that day, I know they would have done everything to like leave with me that day. And that means everything to me. So that's why it wasn't a question of, well, time to move out from behind this rock to try to go, move D to the medevac HLZ. That's what I'm going to do. And every guy there was doing the exact same thing, like covering D with their bodies, you know what I mean? Like at this point I'm out of ammo, so I'll use my body and my plates. It never crossed my mind that it wouldn't be like that. Just, I got through that because of my teammates. I didn't know D that well, and I never knew why it even affected me the way it did. You reflexively just want to protect your teammates. Like, you don't care about anything else. So, and it's not to say that like I was a braver guy than everybody else. Like, not a chance. Like, every single one of those guys on that hill that day would have done everything in their power to do anything they could to help the next guy. And I think that's like what makes special operations so special, is that every guy that was selected, he's there for the team. I think that's what makes you so effective. And I know that like people are like, never leave a man behind. Well, that's super cool in theory until like rounds are cacking off overhead. And again, like you're gonna do what you train to do. And if in training, like your mind has made up that I'm bringing him back, even though he is expectant at this point, like I am bringing him back. I'm not ever gonna leave him. And that's it. Like, it's just so reflexive. And I will bet my life that every guy on that hill that day was thinking the exact same thing. I know I want him to get back to like home. That's what I want. I don't know, D paid the ultimate price. I got to walk away. Yep. I got lucky, I don't know. All I did was my job and he did his job. Maybe I could have done something better. I know we talk about like lessons learned, and for me that day was huge. There's not kind of single day that I haven't thought about like D or, things that happened. Like not a day goes by. And then there's like the reflection of it, of like what valuable lessons I took from that. And then the second thing would be remembering like every dude on that team and how well they performed their tasks. It was just a perfect storm and the perfect group of guys to be there with. Going through that, one huge thing I did realize after the fact, it might have took me a while, but like how vital and crucial every piece of every job of everything it really is. So for instance, the gunship crew that was flying for us, one of their planes broke and the maintainers worked all night. And if the maintainers hadn't worked all night, the next day when we got in this horrible ambush and had that plane not flown, I probably wouldn't be here that day, So it's things like that. And it goes all the way down the chain. Like every little piece that might seem super like nuanced or whatever is generally like unbelievably important. I obviously have a ton of flaws in leadership style, but for me, what I value highly is for a guy to be proficient, professional, and just super humble. If you're those things, you'll always have the capacity to continue to learn. You'll have the capacity to be flexible because you're humble. And when the time comes, you will do your job and you'll do it extremely well. And you'll bring everybody back.